Good evening. Tonight's lesson is finding the area of parallelograms. In class today, we discovered the formula for the area of a parallelogram, but let's recall these two formulas here. We have the area of a rectangle, which is the area equals the length times the width, and your area of a square is the area equals the side length squared, because a square has all four sides the same, so you can just do s times s, or s squared, or you can also think of that as length times width as well. Now let's look at example 1. It says find the area of each parallelogram. Well, first off, we need to know what formula we need to use, and we learned yesterday that, or today, that the area of a parallelogram is the area equals your base times your height. It's important to know what formula you're using before you get started. So now I just have to figure out what my base is and what my height is. Well, looking up here, the flat part, that kind of, if you stood that up, that would sit on the ground, that's your base. Okay, so I don't know my area, and I know my base is 10, and I know my height is 3. So now to find my area, all I have to do is multiply those two. So my area is equal to 30. Now, we need to remember our units. If I have yards times yards, because it's 3 yards times 10 yards, I am multiplying 2 dimensions, so my units are going to be yards squared. So anytime we're finding the area of a polygon, we need to make sure we square our units. Now, if I wanted to look at this a little bit differently, and I could have also said that my height was off to the side here, because if I take this little rectangle, that's 3, I can move it to actually make a rectangle, and then we're back to our rectangle where is 10 times 3 is 30. Okay? On our next one, we have 3 centimeters and 7.5 centimeters. Well, we're doing the parallelogram again, so we need to do the formula. A equals base times height. Now I need to figure out which one my base is. Well, my parallelogram's flipped. So if I flip it, so it would set straight up on this side, my base is actually 7.5 this time. That's the flat side if I were to stand it up. And then my height then is the 3 centimeters. And remember, I can also get my height from here, because if I put that triangle and move it over, my height is still 3 centimeters. And there's the rectangle that we would have started with. So, going back to our formula, we have A equals base times height. And then I'm going to substitute in those values. A equals my base, which we've learned was 7.5, and my height, which is 3. Okay, now we have to multiply, and we see a fraction. But that shouldn't stress you out, because we just finished a chapter on fractions. Remember, in order to multiply fractions and whole numbers, we first need to change this into an improper fraction. So 7.5 is the same thing as 15 halves, and then I multiply that by 3 over 1. And then I look, I can't cross cancel anything, so I get 45 over 2. And then to put that back into a mixed number, you ask yourself, well, how many times does 2 go into 45? And your answer is 22, and you have 1 left over. So 22.5, but remember, we have centimeters and centimeters. So my answer is 22.5 centimeters squared would be the area of that parallelogram. Moving on to our second example. Before we do this example, why don't you pause it and take a moment to answer the on your own questions. Welcome back. Our next one is we are actually going to have to find the base and the height. Before, you were given the base and the height. Now you're going to have to find them. Well, when I'm looking at my parallelogram here, first off, I know parallelogram should say, oh, my formula is A equals base times height. You should always know what formula you're going to use in order to start so you know what things you need to find. Well, I need to find the base. Well, remember the base is the thing that if I were to stand it up, it would stand up straight. So if my base is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so we're going to say 5 units is my base. Because I don't know if it's feet, inches, yards, so I'm just going to say 5 units. The next thing we need to find is the height. So our height is from the very top of our parallelogram all the way down. So the opposite, the line that connects those two parallel sides. So my height is 1, 2, 3 units. Remember, I also could have found my height here. I could have dropped it on the outside. 1, 2, 3. Same thing. So now that I know my base and my height, so this is my base and this one's my height, I can start plugging them into your formula. So my area is equal to 5 units times 3 units. So if I just multiply those, I get 15 units squared. Okay, let's try one more like that. You don't have this on your notes, but we're going to try another one. Okay, I'm looking at this parallelogram. Okay, I want the flat side down here. Okay, so I need to find my base and my height. So looking at my base, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 units there. And then my height, okay, I'm going to drop right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is my height. So if I need to do my base times my height, I'm going to get my area is equal to 5 times 7. So area is equal to 35 units squared. Okay. Why don't you take a moment, pause this, and answer the on your own questions after this section. Okay, welcome back. So here is a word problem that I want you to take a moment and pause and read over the steps that they go through. Okay, welcome back. So what this is asking is it's saying you have to do a project, okay, and here's your project, and you start with this large sheet of plywood, okay, and it's shaped like a parallelogram. And it says that, well, it's 8 feet tall and it's 4 feet wide. So my base is 4 feet and it's 8 feet tall. Okay? And now what I need to do is I'm trying to make it so I can stick a face in there, and I need to cut a hole open big enough so I can take a picture of somebody and have their face in there. And you've seen those at the zoo and probably amusement parks everywhere. They have those pretty much everywhere. So we need to get the units to be the same. Well, if I were to convert inches to feet, that's going to give me a fraction answer, and those aren't any fun. So let's convert feet to inches. Well, as it says here, 12 inches in 1 foot, so my base is 4 times 12, which is 48 inches. So right here on my base, this is actually 48 inches. And then the height is 8 feet, so if I do 8 times 12, that is 96 inches. And I need to find the area of the entire wood, because then I need to take out, I'm going to have to cut out that part there. So the area of all of my plywood is actually 4,608 inches squared. Okay? Now I need to cut out that area of the square, then I need to leave room so someone can stick their face in there. So the area of the square is actually 10 by 10. So it's 10 times 10, which is 100. So then I subtract that out and I get 4,508 square inches, or inches squared. Okay? So let me show you what this looks like before we do another example. Let's take this parallelogram, for example. And I'm trying to do that same thing. I am trying to cut out a little spot in the middle because let's say we're trying to make a funky shaped light switch. And I want this spot right here to come out because I need to put my light switch in there. Okay? So first I need to start, let's envision this being plastic. I need to start with the area of my entire plastic piece. So if I look at my base and my height, my 6 inches, this is my base, and this 4 inches, this is my height. So the area of the entire thing is 6 times 4, or 24 inches squared. That's the area of everything. Well, now I'm interested, I want to take out this little spot, and it's 2 by 1 inches. So I need to cut this out. And really what I'm interested in is, well, how much area does that take away from my parallelogram? Well, the area of this rectangle is just 2 times 1, or 2 inches squared. So if I completely take it out, and I'm just going to tear it out right now, it's gone. I subtracted 2 square inches from that. So then I have minus 2 inches squared. So now all I have left is 22 inches squared. That is all of the purple that you see. 22 square inches. So I do the whole, and then I subtract out what I no longer want, which was this little rectangle. Okay, so let's move on to one more example like this. This says, in example 3, we're going to instead cut out an 8 by 8 square inch piece out of the wood. So remember, we started with 4,608. Okay, we're still starting with that same amount. 4,608. That's the area of the wood. That's what we're starting with. Now I'm taking out an 8 by 8 square. I want that to go away. So if I have a square that's 8 by 8, my area is 64 inches squared. So now we need to subtract 4,608 minus 64. Now if you can't do that in your head, just set it up like a subtraction problem and do the subtraction. Okay, line up your place values. 8 minus 4, that's 4. I can't take 6 away from 0, so I have to borrow. 10 minus 6 is 4. 5 minus nothing is 5. And then 4 minus 0. And then go back and do a quick check. This would be 8. This would be 10, 6, and 4. I got back to where I started with. So if I took out an 8 by 8 square from my poster or from my plywood, I would have 4,544 square inches remaining. Okay, well, go back, watch anything that's still a little fuzzy to you, try the last on your own questions here, and be ready to get started when we come into class. Have a good night.